In her literary criticism, Diane Taugen brought up the themes of Huck Finn. Race and racism were in that category. She says that the book's presentation of the issue is very complex because they're not very clear about the issue. She says that Huck begins to respect Jim and realize that he's another human being. Although he still says the N-word, he shows an understanding that they're still people. He just has a hard time grasping the idea. Diane states that Huck is talking this way simply because of his upbringing. There's no real agreement on the message on the subject of what race really is.
This book was thought to be offensive and was banned from the Concord Public Library in 1885. They said that the book was trash and only suitable for the slums. In 1902, the Brooklyn Public Library complained and banned The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn because he said sweat when he should have said perspiration.
We scratched down and laid still. Miss Watson's big nigger named Jim was sent... Yes, Asian.
What does nigger mean?
Well, it's a slang word for black person that they used to use in the 1900s and before that when they used to enslave the African race. It's a derogatory term that you may not say today, and I hope you understand that through the use of this book, The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn.
Do you think Huckleberry Finn was there was intended racism, or do you think it's just how they talked back then?
I know it's the way they talked back then. Matter of fact, it's the way they talked in the 1950s, 60s, and 70s, and some people still talk like that today.
Wait, first question. Do we look like the Breakfast Club?
You don't look like the Breakfast Club, but, you know, I can see where you're going with that.
Okay. Anyways, so do you think that Huckleberry Finn was intended to be racist, or just the way they talk?
I think that Huckleberry Finn was written in a time where racism was around, and that's the way people talked, and whether they would have considered themselves racist or not, that was just kind of the norm back then. Not that it's okay, but it was written in a time where that type of speech was very common. So I think that it's probably written the way that they saw things, and they didn't think anything wrong at the time.
Okay, do you think it should be banned from schools and libraries, or taught so as a door to open to say, hey, this is how they talk, this was wrong, you should not talk like this?
I think it absolutely should be taught because it's an American classic. It has a lot of good things to come out of it, and it is a really great way to teach students the right things and the wrong things and how things used to be versus how far we've come today.
I think he was just trying to personify the characters that he thought would have been around back then. He was just using some dialect from back in the day. So I think he was just trying to write a good book.
I do not believe that it was racist in nature. The idea would have been to create awareness about certain stereotypes that were propelled in this time.
So I think it is the way they talked back then, but I still think it's coming from racism. But they weren't necessarily using the word in a racist way.
Well, I think it is because they talked back then, but I also think that it's because Mark Twain was trying to really teach a lesson to the country, and that was to point out the racism in the country.
I think it's just how they talked back then. They said it all the time.
You know nothing!
You know, it's reflective of the time period. It's the word that they used to refer to people of color at that point in time, so it's not intended to be racist. We just interpret it that way now.
So do you think that the way that they did Huckleberry Finn was like intended to be racist, or just the way they talked, or what? Like,
it's just the way they talked back in that culture. I think it reflects what the times were like back in that day.
So do you think it encourages that word, or like kind of opens a door to like talk about it,
well,
how it's wrong?
If it's effectively taught, then it would be understood that that word should not be encouraged these days. It was used back in the day as a derogatory statement, but we should, be educated about it more now and know that it should not be used in that way today.
Do you think it should be banned from schools and libraries?
The book or the actual book?
Yeah, the book.
Well, I wouldn't necessarily. It is a part of history, so it's something that it should be rich and should be used as a good part of education. I wouldn't say ban it, but I would say just make sure that we educate people on the word and knowing that it has negative meaning.
Do you think Huckleberry Finn is racist because it uses the N-word?
No, we need, unfortunately, some of those ugly things are important, and we need them. We still study about the Holocaust. It's ugly. The reason why you learn and read things in context and in their real context is because controversy is the only way we will be educated. Definitely it's going to offend some people in the beginning, but once you start reading, you realize that the beauty of the book is that Jim is mistreated and that you understand that. Not the beauty of the book, but the actual importance of the book is that we see the mistakes, so that we're not repeating them. And also, Twain wrote the book to capture the moment. Can't deny it.
So you don't think it should be banned in schools and public libraries?
No, we don't ban things that are ugly. We have to look at things that are ugly so that we can fix them and move on.
Makes sense.
The majority of our interviews and research that we've conjured up in our many days and hours of researching has come to our conclusion that the book itself and the writer did not mean for it to be racist in any way, but we take it so offensively because we're all weak these days. You know, they're just overreacting. And our research concludes that Mark Twain was a good guy, you know, didn't mean anything by it, and, you know, it shouldn't be banned in schools because, you know, people like you and me can learn from things like this.